Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. I'm your host today, and today it is a Friday show. So what does that mean? That means Bracketology. Every Friday, we'll be having Bracketology shows as long as there's stuff to talk about all the way through March. So the outline of the show today, it's going to look like this. We're going to talk about the games that happened on Tuesday and Wednesday that are going to influence this Bracketology and the changes that just happened. We saw a bunch of buzzer beaters, so we'll discuss that. Hopefully quickly get through those, and then we will reveal our full field of 68 list, and then we'll talk about our bubble watch. We also have a little special one where we're going to talk about resumes that aren't as good as you think. We're going to talk about 3 teams where if you see them a little bit lower in my bracketology, it's going to give a reason why. So we're going to include that segment, teams with worse resumes than you think. And then, of course, just to close out the show, we'll just talk about the upcoming weekend of college basketball, especially on Saturday. We have good games as conference play. Pretty much every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday has lived up to the hype every single, ever since conference play started. So it's been really fun, but we're going to talk about all of that before diving into it. Just be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on those post notifications so you're up to date on the college basketball season. We're going to be talking bracketology, like I said, every Friday show. Sometimes it might be coming to you on Thursdays. And then Mondays, we do record ranking shows as we're diving more into resume-based rankings now instead of just predictions. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's, where you'll see all our graphics that we're going to use today on our Instagram and TikTok. Alrighty, let's dive right into it and let's talk about what happened over the past week of college basketball. So let's go back to Tuesday real quick, and let's just quickly talk about the big one. Number 2, Iowa State did lose their first game of the season, losing at Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. Final score 84-63. Trey White was magnificent in this one for Kansas. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of 7 from 3. He knocked down a ton of them in the first half. Darren Pearson was just kind of serviceable, which was fine to see, Kansas play on the elite level, beat one of the best teams in the country without Darren Pearson playing lights out. He did have 16 points in that one. Not worried at all for Iowa State, but Kansas is going to be higher in bracketology than you might expect. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. All right, so we're going to move down the graphic and talk about a ranked on ranked matchup. Number 3, UConn went to number 25, Seton Hall. Took them down 69-64, just solidifying UConn as the number 2 overall seed in our bracketology. Arizona is going to be 1. No surprise there. Everyone's got Arizona 1. UConn is 2, in my opinion, right now. They have number 1 in wins against their ranked first in wins against bubble right now. Terrace Reed was great in this one, had 21 points, 9 rebounds. I believe he's their best player, but they can get it from anyone, any night. Caravan, solo ball, Silas Demery's been awesome. This team's really good. Seton Hall still comfortably in the tournament picture. Up next, number 19, Florida went to Oklahoma and drilled them 96-79. Florida is going to keep playing themselves up. I will be surprised if Florida isn't a protected top 16 seed. So, 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed. It's going to be hard for them to get to a 1 or 2 seed, obviously, with, not winning any real huge games early in the season. They're picking it up now, though. They have better predictives than you might think. In fact, they are, let me find them here, 10th at KenPom. So they're inside the top 10 at KenPom, 11th at Torvik. They're climbing up the net. Ruben Chinyelu was great in this one, 19 points, 12 rebounds. He's been a beast lately. Tommy Houck, 21 points. I think Tommy Houck should be an All-American, at least on one of the teams by the end of the season. Florida is continuing to roll. Oklahoma has played themselves off the bubble. Oklahoma is not even going to be in our next 4 out when we talk about our bubble talk. Next up, Texas A&M and Tennessee, number 24, Tennessee. What a game this was. Ended up going into double overtime where Tennessee got him. Nate Ament finally kind of really showed up in overtime in this one. He had 23 points total. 10 of these came in, combined for the overtime. I believe he had 5 in the first overtime and 5 in the second overtime, kind of took over the game. But Texas A&M showed a lot of fight. This Texas A&M team is impressive to me. This was their first loss in SEC play. We're going to talk about SEC standings here in a second because no SEC teams have zero losses in their conference play. So, but Texas A&M was one of the last remaining undefeated teams, and they're really good. They're better off than you think they are in terms of bracketology, but a good win here for Tennessee, a much-needed victory for Tennessee. Another much-needed victory, number 18, Alabama kills their 2-game losing streak with a win at Mississippi State, 97-82. LeBaron Philon, my goodness, 32 points in this one, continuing to be a big threat for SEC Player of the Year. Let's keep going. West Virginia lost at number 7 Houston 77-48. I said on the last show, I don't think West Virginia is going to score 50 points. They didn't. How about that? That was a bold prediction I didn't think was actually going to hit, and it did. West Virginia only 48 points. Houston just way too dominant for West Virginia, 77-48. Miami won at Notre Dame, 81-69. Notre Dame is off the bubble. They have a ton of work to do, may even have to win the ACC tournament to get into the, to have any chance of getting into an at-large berth. And Miami, what a start they are. They're 15-2 on the season, looking like a tournament team in year one under Jay Lucas. Florida State played at Syracuse. Syracuse won 94-86. Ever since Donnie Freeman came back for Syracuse, they've been playing better. They lost a game at home to Hofstra. Without that game, they'd probably be right on the bubble. Not quite on the bubble right now, but there's a chance. St. Mary's won at San Francisco. St. Mary's continues to be one of the best teams in the WCC, second best team behind Gonzaga, 82-68. San Francisco with a disappointing season. All right, now maybe the most shocking result of the night, at least for some. Number 16, Virginia wins at number 20, Louisville, 79-70. Virginia is legit. Virginia is up to 14 in the net. They're 14th at KenPom, 10th at Torvik. Predictives like them. They're 3-0 inside Quad 1A. How about that? We're going to talk about their resume because they're going to be a little higher in bracketology than you might think. They got a great one from Malik Thomas in this one. 19 points with 6 of 8 from downtown. Louisville was without Ryan Conwell for the 7th straight game. Ryan Conwell's been playing. Michael Brown Jr. They've been without Michael Brown Jr. for the 7th straight game. I've seen rumors on, I don't know how true they are, on Twitter, on Instagram, of will he just shut it down for the season? I don't know, but it's obvious this team needs him. We talked about how Louisville, before losing Brown, when Brown was on the court versus off the court, Louisville was actually fine. That's not coming to be a part of it. They're not a top 25 team right now. We're going to talk about Louisville in resumes that aren't as good as you might think. So Louisville going to be a little lower than you might think. Let's keep going through these. Baylor won at Oklahoma State, 94-79. Baylor needed it. Both teams very much so on the bubble. This boosted Baylor's, win margin is a part of predictive metrics. So KenPom, Torvik, even the net's a little bit of an unknown, but win margin is a big thing. So winning on the road by 15 against another bubble team that might be in the NCAA tournament. Very good stuff for Baylor and Scott Drew there. Indiana kept it close with number 12 Michigan State for a while, but Michigan State's physicality just way too much. 81-60, Michigan State drills Indiana. Indiana, you might be on the resumes that don't look so good either. So we'll talk about them a little bit more. Let's talk about Michigan State. Jeremy Fear is one of the best point guards in the entire country. 23 points, 10 assists in this one. Cohen Carr had a rock and dunk as well. Jackson Kohler was also very good. This team is very good. Very, Tom Izzo-like team. Good win there. Nebraska stays undefeated, number 8 team in the country, with a 90-55 win over Oregon. Oregon is terrible. They were without Jackson Shellstad, but we've said it all season long. Jackson Shellstad is out any game. If Nate Biddle is out any game, Oregon's going to be terrible. And without him, Nebraska kills them, 90-55. So like I said, point margin. Nebraska, what's holding them back from being a 1 seed right now is what's holding them back from being a 1 seed is their predictive metrics. Their resume metrics are fantastic. 2nd in strength of record, 4th in wins against bubble. However, they were down, right around 20-ish in KenPom and Torvik and in the BPI. This boosts them a little bit. They're now 15th at KenPom and 16th at Torvik. So there's still hope for a Nebraska 1 seed. I would have them as a 2 seed right now. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Wisconsin won at Minnesota. Let's mention first for Nebraska, Price Samford was awesome, 28 points and 7 of 11 from 3. Like I said, it's just somewhat different every game for Nebraska. Ranked Mass, Price Samford, Jamarcus Lawrence, really good basketball team. So Wisconsin won at the buzzer against Minnesota. What a game. Cade Tyson hit a 3 for Minnesota to tie it up with a couple seconds left. They didn't stop ball. You got to stop ball after knocking down that 3 with about 4 seconds left. John Blackwell got all the way to just deep 3 range and knocked it down. He had 27 points, was 5 of 7 from 3. Wisconsin comfortably in the NCAA tournament right now. They're playing well right now too. A win against Michigan, a little bit of a, hangover game here, and they still got it done at the barn, which is proving not an easy place to play. Ask Iowa, ask Indiana, both losing to Minnesota at Minnesota. Creighton's season was on the ropes here. They hold off Georgetown in overtime, 86-83. Creighton, we talked about them. We actually posted a thing on our Instagram for those who follow it. Go follow it. It was comparing Creighton's resume to UCLA's resume last week. Since then, things have obviously changed. UCLA's won and Creighton hasn't, and then Creighton escaped this one. It's now UCLA ahead of Creighton, but Creighton was in better shape than you might think. Now they're starting to fall off a little bit, but they're still in the conversation. Villanova won at Providence 88-82. Providence may be looking for a new coach very soon here. And then St. John's killed Marquette, as you'd expect, and USC did beat Maryland. All right, next up, let's go to Wednesdays and talk about these games real quick. The big one, Texas won at home against number 10 Vanderbilt, giving them their first loss of the season. So we're down to only 3 undefeated teams. We'll talk about them here in a second. Vokatitis, the transfer from FAU, had 22 points in this one, was very good. Tremont Mark, 21 points. Texas is playing themselves onto the bubble. They had a really rough non-conference, but they just beat Alabama and now beating Vanderbilt, the two teams that coming into SEC play, those were the two teams to beat, Vanderbilt and Alabama, and throw Florida in the conversation. But these, picking up wins against both of them, very good for Texas's, at-large hopes. Ole Miss won against number 21 Georgia, thanks to a Pinkins last-second just little caught it off the miss. I believe AJ Storr missed it, caught off the miss, floated it back up at the buzzer, got the game winner there. AJ Storr was fantastic in the game, 27 points, 11 of 22 from the field. Yeah, that's Wisconsin like AJ Storr, firing up a bunch of shots and making a lot of them. Pinkins had 18 points and was 3 of 3 from the three, along with that buzzer beater there for Georgia. Georgia falling off a little bit. They're going to be a little lower than you might think. Jeremiah Wilkinson was very good. He did have 32 points in this game, but Ole Miss maybe figuring some stuff out, but not near a tournament team. And so tougher loss here for Georgia. Another buzzer beater, Kentucky wins at LSU 75-74, thanks to a Christian Laettner buzzer beater by Malachi Moreno. It was heaved all the way down the court, caught it, turned around, knocked down the shot to take down LSU. They will trail by 16 at the half, but Otega Owe has been really good the past couple games. He had 21 in this one. LSU still winless in the SEC. Kentucky, this might be the win that they needed to maybe turn around the season, or not turn around the season, but stay above the bubble, we'll say. Auburn lost at Missouri. Auburn now 1-3 in the SEC. Missouri picking off another good win. They've now beat Auburn, Kentucky, and Florida. 84-74, Mark Mitchell, very good in this game. I liked this Missouri team coming into the season. They played an incredibly weak non-conference schedule. Now they're playing well. Missouri going to be on the right side of the bubble. Michigan rebounded that after that loss against Wisconsin with a win at Washington, 82-72. Morris Johnson Jr. was fantastic, 16 points, 16 rebounds in this one for him, playing like a potential maybe 2 Michigan player, first team All Big Ten. I don't know how many players Big Ten first team has, but he's been really good along with Yaxel Lendeborg, obviously. Iowa lost at number 5 Purdue, but they hung with them. They actually led a lot of the game, but Purdue ended up getting the job done 79-72. Illinois won at Northwestern 79-68. UCLA did win at Penn State 71-60, and Duke won at Cal 71-56. Now let's go back to the top of the graphic for those watching. This was maybe one of the more surprising results of the week. Stanford wins at home against number 14 North Carolina. Ebuka Ekori, know the name, 36 points, 12 of 20 from the field. He's a freshman, 3 of 5 from 3-point range. He's averaging over 20 a game. I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere around like 23 or 24 a game. He's going to be an all first team, all ACC player. Stanford is in better shape than you might think. They're well coached under Kyle Smith, and he has a stud with Ebuka Ekori. So good win there. For North Carolina, it's not like, their two dynamic bigs played bad. Henry Vasar and Caleb Wilson combined for 52 points. They both had 26 apiece, but still couldn't win the game against Stanford. I know North Carolina fans a little frustrated. Virginia Tech and SMU, yet another buzzer beater. Virginia Tech led 76-77 with 2 seconds left. Boopy Miller, game-winning half-court buzzer beater. He finished with 24 points. Wasn't the most efficient 24 points, but he hit the one when he needed it. A half-quarter. Virginia Tech has suffered 3 losses in the ACC. They're 2-3, and all 3 of them have been just heartbreaking losses. This one was the cherry on top with a half-court. Wasn't even like a clean half-court shot. It was falling to the side, and Boopy Miller knocks it down. SMU in the tournament. Virginia Tech going to be just on the outside looking in. We'll talk about that in our bubble watch. Arizona, actually, the number 1 team in the country, was losing at the half to rival Arizona State, but they ended up getting them in the second half, 89-82. Koa Pete, fantastic freshman. We're going to talk about 3 freshmen here in a second. 24 points, 10 rebounds in this one. UCF won at Kansas State. Kansas State is not good. They have no sort of physicality down low. TCU lost at number 11 BYU. AJ Demansa, 25 points. Fantastic freshman. Good win there for BYU, just continuing to do nothing wrong. Cincinnati beat Colorado 77-68. The story with Cincinnati has been their Barstool Twitter account posting that they're going to wear brown bags to the game to protest Wes Miller, which has sparked a bunch of controversy on the internet. But they do get a win against Colorado. Number 17 Arkansas drilled South Carolina 108-74. This is really going to boost their computer. Like we said, win margin does count in these computer predictives. So this will boost it a little bit. Darius Acuff Jr., 18 points, 13 assists, SEC Player of the Year candidate. Butler has fallen off completely, and they lose at Xavier 89-75. Utah State, who is going to be higher ranked in bracketology than you might think, won against Nevada 71-62. So that's everything that happened this week that's going to influence our bracketology a little bit. So there's only 3 remaining undefeated teams. There's Arizona, the number 1 team in the country, Nebraska, who's been the best story in the entire country all season long, and Miami of Ohio continuing to plug along as an undefeated team. They're going to have a tough one in a couple days at Kent State. We'll see if they can stay undefeated. All right, on the other side of the break, we are going to talk bracketology. We're going to label 1 through 68, talk some bubble talk about those teams that have worse resumes than you might think. We'll be right back talking bracketology. Golf is a growing game, yet it is nearly impossible to find affordable golf instruction. Well, not any longer. Introducing virtual swing reviews by PGA certified Brandon Jadich Golf Instruction. Just send a video of your swing to receive feedback to fix your swing in minutes. You don't need a $100 hour-long lesson when the instructor knows how to correct your habits after just one swing. Follow Brandon Jadich Golf Instruction on Instagram with the link below in the description, and send a message saying swing review for just a $10 swing review, or comment under this YouTube video saying swing review. 2026 is a year of saving money and improvement. So start now with this limited time offer to grow your golf game. Alrighty, we are back. Let's talk bracketology. Here is our fold seed list as of Thursday, January 15th. I'll be posting this on Instagram and TikTok on Friday. So some little things might change because, as you might not know, like if, say, Duke beat, I don't know, just for example, someone who's not on this list, Lipscomb or something. Who played Lipscomb earlier in there? Wasn't it Duke? So they beat Lipscomb. Then if Lipscomb plays on a Thursday, even though there's no higher events, and they get beat by 40, then Duke's metrics will naturally go down a little bit less because they, that win isn't as good as originally thought. So that can change a little bit of things, which might influence a little bit of movement. But here's where I stand as of, the 15th of January. So your number 1 overall seeds, we talk about them enough. I'm sorry to these teams for those fan bases of these bracketologies like Arizona. We talk about them so much that I'm not going to dive too deep into their resume because there's not a lot of controversy behind it. They are the number 1 overall seed. And like I said, UConn has the number 2 overall seed with they're first in the country in wins against bubble, 3rd in strength of record with good predictives as well. They're 5-1 in quad 1A, which is the best in the country. So they're right there. I still have Michigan as your 3rd number 1 seed. They're first at KenPom, first at Torvik. No surprise there. And then Duke, after the win against Cal, it really boosted their predictives just a little bit. They're now 6th at KenPom, where they were 8th. Torvik, they're still 15th, but they're 1st in BPI. That boosted them up again. And with having the most quad 1 wins in the country, I felt it was enough for them to be the last number 1 seed. With your number 2 seeds being Purdue, just random note on Purdue, they're plus 1,400 right now to win the national championship on FanDuel. I think that's pretty good odds. I think that's the best odds you're going to find them. If you see this little asterisk next to their name, just a reminder, that means they're the projected winner of their conference. So it could have been Purdue, could have been Nebraska. Neither of them have lost in the Big Ten. Michigan has obviously lost, but I would go with Purdue right now. It's a coin flip, but I just have Purdue ranked a little higher in bracketology, so that's why I gave it to them. But I think they might be the team to beat in the Big Ten. It's them and Michigan. No disrespect to Nebraska. They've been fantastic. The predictives just aren't all the way there yet, so I'm going to lean a little bit on those predictives. I just think Purdue is so undervalued right now, and at plus 1,400, I think they got just about as good a chance as anyone to win the national championship. Nebraska is next at number 2 as a number 2 seed. Like we said, really good resume-based metrics. The predictives aren't quite there. 15th at KenPom, 16th at Torvik, 20th in the BPI, but they've obviously done nothing wrong as they are undefeated on the season. Iowa State, I dropped them from the last number 1 seed to a 2 seed after that blowout loss at Kansas. The only reason it was keeping them as a number 1 seed is because they were undefeated. Like I said, it's if the tournament started right now. If they were undefeated, they would have been a number 1 seed with the good predictives that they have. Like Nebraska's predictives just holding them back a little bit. Iowa State's predictives are better. They're 3rd at KenPom, 8th at Torvik, 6th in the BPI. They're pretty much just, that loss is a quad 1A loss. So it's not a bad loss whatsoever. They're still right there. And then Vanderbilt, after their loss, still would be the next number 2 seed. In my opinion, they don't bump too far back. They're 10th in strength of record, 7th in wins against bubble, which is, a little bit comparable to, they're 7th in wins against bubble compared to Houston, who's our next 3 seed, who is 10th in wins against bubble. That's what boosted them up a little bit for me, including a better record in quad 1 plus quad 2 compared to Houston, at 9-1 compared to Houston 8-1. But it's a coin flip. I looked at it for a while, Houston versus Vanderbilt for the last 2 seed. Just with Vanderbilt being the favorite in the SEC right now with that automatic berth, I would give it to Vanderbilt over Houston. But Houston as a 3 seed, I will be shocked if Houston ends up a 3 seed. I think they're going to end up being a 1 or 2 seed. Right now, I would have them as a 3 seed. Gonzaga, just not really anywhere to go with playing in the WCC. I believe they play tonight on Thursday night, maybe at Washington State. That's kind of the only game that is that involves a ranked opponent. So maybe watch out for that one, but I doubt Gonzaga will have any issues with a struggling Washington State team. BYU still just done absolutely nothing wrong. And then Michigan State, these have been the 3 seeds for a while. Michigan State, which might be a little bit surprising to some, and same with BYU. Neither of them have a quad 1A win. They both have, good quad 1 wins. BYU's 4-1 in quad 1. Michigan State is 4-2 in quad 1. Neither team has a loss outside of quad 1, so both are really good, but neither team with an elite win yet, at least according to the net. So Michigan State is your final 3 seed. Illinois as your first number 4 seed. This is another one of them with a really weird resume because they're up to 5th at KenPom. This team is really good. They're 5th at Torvik as well. Their predictives are good. However, they're 13th in strength of record and 13th in wins against bubble. Just with how strong the 3 seeds have been, BYU and Michigan State, and with the 3 losses for Illinois, I would have them as the first 4 seed. But this is a team where, if something crazy happened, we had one of those crazy days where a bunch of ranked teams were losing. Illinois could jump up to a 2 seed with no hesitation whatsoever. They're right there as well. And then Virginia, like we said, they're going to be higher than you think. They're up to a 4 seed in the second 4 seed. So that would put them at 14th overall. They're 14th in the net, 14th at KenPom, 10th at Torvik, 14th in strength of record, and 16th in wins against bubble. They're 3-0 in quad 1A. So their wins are at Texas, at NC State, at Louisville. It says something to me when a team can win on the road and just get away from their home court. Not even just neutral site games, but win on the road. It says a lot about a team. Road wins do matter. They're 3-1 in quad 1, 4-1 in quad 2. So they do have a quad 2 loss, but they've done nothing wrong. This Virginia team, they're the second best team in the ACC right now. Next up would be Alabama. We'll talk about Alabama and Kansas. We'll kind of join them together because if there's the biggest point I want to get across for both coaches and for fans of the sport, it's to schedule like Alabama and Kansas schedule, because when you play such a difficult schedule, your numbers are going to be boosted in terms of bracketology. I know they've both suffered some losses, but Kansas is 15th in wins against bubble. That's pretty good for, hovering on a 4 or 5 seed. And their predictives are also going to be pretty good as well with beating the Iowa States of the world. They beat Tennessee. So other good analytically sound teams. With beating them and playing a gauntlet of a schedule, even if you go like Kansas is 3-5 in quad 1, 3-4 in quad 1A. So most of their quad 1 games have been top tier games. When you win 3 of them, that's going to boost. When you lose them, it's not going to hurt you that much. Same goes with Alabama, as Alabama is 3-4 in quad 1, 2-4 in quad 1A. So they're just a sliver behind Kansas in the quadrant section. However, when you look at their strength of record, they're actually they're 15th in strength of record compared to Kansas's 22nd, and 14th in wins against bubble compared to Kansas's 15th. So they're a little bit better in both of those, and with better predictive averages for 15.3 compared to Kansas's 15.7. That's why I gave it to Alabama over Kansas, but they're both very similar. So what the strength of record does, for those who don't know, is not all quad 1 games are created equal. Not all quad 2 games are created equal. Not even all quad 1A games are created equal, although it is split in half, obviously, for better quad 1 games, worse quad 1 games. However, you can still play, the 30th best team or the first best team, and it still will count as a quad 1. Quad 1 wins. So what the strength of record does is it kind of gets rid of a little bit of that bias-y and gets rid of not all being equal and just the overall games that you've played and, ends up being the strength of record. So gave it to Alabama over Kansas. Next up is Texas Tech as a 5 seed, just kind of cruising along right now. They just beat someone someone not good. I can't even remember who it was. Didn't even put it on the notable results because it was someone they should have beat. I can't remember. It's obviously someone in the Big 12, but Texas Tech, they're hovering right around those same metric numbers as Kansas and Alabama, just slightly a little bit worse. Just only one quad 1A win, excuse me, two quad one wins total, which is both one behind Kansas and Alabama. Next up is Clemson, who is just kind of cruising along. As right now, I have them ranked as the third highest team in bracketology out of the ACC. A lot of hype is going to go to Louisville and North Carolina. Yes, Louisville and North Carolina have more talent. Are they as cohesive as this Clemson team? Are they as well coached? I don't know. Brad Brownell has done a fantastic job. So they're 26th in the net, but they're 17th in strength of record and 18th in wins against bubble, and good predictives across the board as well. They're 3-2 in quad 1, 4-1 in quad 2 for 7-3 inside the first two quadrants. That is very good. That's a lot of wins inside the first two quadrants. Got them as a 5 seed. Next up, Villanova with very similar resume-based metrics compared to Clemson, just a little bit worse in both. So an average of 19.3 resume-based metrics for Clemson to 21 for Villanova. A little better for Clemson, and 25.3 predictive metrics for Clemson compared to 29.7. So just a little worse. Moving on to Villanova. Florida is probably the hardest team to rank in this entire bracketology because their strength of record and wins against bubble is getting better. They're 27th in strength of record, 23rd in wins against bubble. So do the math. That puts you 6-ish, 7-ish, 8-ish seed. But their predictives are fantastic. They're 10th at KenPom, 11th at Torvik, and 9th in BPI for an average of 10. That's like 3 seed. So they're very hard to rank. I ended up, I value a little bit of what they've done right now. The predictives are going to even out. There's a lot of history and a lot of research that shows that these teams that haven't quite been elite yet, but have really high predictives do end up being very good, like with predictives as good as this with an average of 10. So I think they're going to climb up, and they have an easier route to climb up because if they win a game, they don't have to worry about their predictives. They're already high. If they win a game to boost their strength of record, they're going to keep climbing and even jumping these teams. So Florida has a good chance to keep climbing up. They're very good. Arkansas next as a 6 seed. It was a battle between Arkansas and Florida for the last 6 seed. So I wanted to put Arkansas on my actually next. When we start with North Carolina, we're going to pull up the other graphic of resumes that aren't as good as you might think. But with Arkansas, I thought they were going to be in that conversation until they just drilled South Carolina. So it's like they're close to a 5 seed. And I think Arkansas fans would say they're probably like a 5-ish seed right now. I have them as the first 6 seed just because I don't think you can put them over Villanova or Clemson in terms of the resume base. And like I said, Florida's resume is a little bit different. So it's hard to compare the two. But the win against South Carolina, they're 16th in strength of record, 19th in wins against bubble. That's pretty good. Their resume averages are just behind those of Clemson and Villanova. So like we said, Clemson's is 19.3, Villanova is 21, Arkansas 21.3. So it's very close. But then when you go over to the predictives, they do have a little bit worse predictives than Clemson at an average of 26.3 compared to Clemson's 25.3. So I got them behind that. But then when you look at them compared to Villanova, Arkansas has a little bit of an edge with 26.3 compared to 29.7. I know this might be very confusing. I'm getting very nerdy. But when you talk about the quadrants, move over to the quadrants. If you want to follow along, by the way, barttorvik.com, the team sheet, it is linked in the description. That's where I show all the numbers, or watch our last bracketology where I tried to explain it as best as I could. But when you compare the quadrants, Arkansas 1-4 inside of Quad 1A, Villanova 1-2, so similar there. Arkansas 3-4 inside of Quad 1 total, while Villanova's 3-2. So like I said, it leans a little bit towards Villanova. It's really close, but I ended up leaning with Villanova over Arkansas. I see the argument for Arkansas as the last 5 seed. They're fringe 5, 6 seed. All right, so let's pull up this other graphic as we're going to talk about North Carolina. Find North Carolina on the graphic. They're up next after Arkansas as a 6 seed. Might be a little lower than you might think. And Louisville as a 7 seed on here. And then the other one I want to note that you will not see on here is Indiana. I have Indiana on the outside looking in. So those are going to be the 3 teams featured on this next graphic that I'm going to pull up. So let's talk about, let's start with North Carolina. So they're 14-3. That looks pretty good, right? Their strength of schedule is 66th in the country. That's not very good. So with a 14-3 record, strength of schedule being 66, this is according to the net. Average that out to a strength of record of 25th. That averages out to what, a 7-ish seed. They're also 30th in the net, 35th at KenPom, 29th at Torvik. They're not top 25 in any of those. They're 14th in the AP poll. However, they're going to drop with the loss at Stanford. And then when you look at wins against bubble, 22nd. So their strength of resume-based metrics are a little bit better. than those of the predictive metrics, so 25th and 22nd. However, not enough to carry them. They're 1-2 in Quad 1A. That's fine. 3-3 in Quad 1. That's fine. Not elite, but good. 1-0 in Quad 2 for only 4-3 inside the first two quadrants. 0 losses outside of that. However, their metrics are not as good as you might think. I know you might think North Carolina, they beat Kansas earlier this season. They haven't played a very hard schedule. It's obviously going to get tougher in the ACC. The ACC is better this year, but would have them as a 6 seed right now. So next up, let's talk about Louisville, who I have as a 7 seed right now. They're 12-5. Like we said, they've really struggled without Michael Brown Jr., 3-4 in the last 7 with Michael Brown Jr. out of the lineup. However, they do have a better strength of schedule, which is 27th, but their strength of record is actually worse than North Carolina's with that 12-5 record for 38th and 34th in wins against bubble. That's not very good. That's usually actually not bubbly, but getting close to 8, 9 seeds for those metrics. But however, their predictives are a little better. 21 across the board, KenPom, Torvik, net. So that's a little bit better. That's going to predict that they're going to keep climbing up a little bit. However, in Quad 1A, they're 0-4. They're 2-5 in Quad 1 total, 2-0 in Quad 2. They're sub 500 in the first 2 quadrants, 4-5. I know they're not playing without Michael Brown Jr., and that does mean something. We see the potential with this team. However, right now, I would have this ranked as a 7 seed. Now let's talk about Indiana, who's going to be on the outside looking in. Also 12-5 on the season. However, their strength of schedule, 84th, not very good at all. Their predictives are solid. 36th in the net, 33rd at KenPom, and 23rd at Torvik. That's tournament bound. However, when getting into the tournament for the last couple spots, what really matters is what you've done so far this season. Their strength of record is 49th. Their wins against bubble, 57th. Usually you want to be top 40-ish in these categories. They're 49th and 57th. And then when you look, well, maybe they have some Quad 1 wins, but just some bad losses. They don't. They're 0-4 in Quad 1A, 0-4 in Quad 1 total. Still don't have a Quad 1 win. 1-1 in Quad 2 for 1-5 inside the first 2 quadrants. They don't have any bad losses. However, they haven't beaten anyone. They have really not beaten anyone. In fact, I will actually, I'll tell you right now who that Quad 2 win is and what makes that their best win. Where did I say they were on the net? They are 36th in the net. So their Quad 2 win is Washington. A home game against Washington. That is their best win so far this season in accordance to the net. So Indiana, not as good a resume as you might think. So let's go back to this other graphic and talk about some of the other teams. Like we said, North Carolina as a 6 seed. Utah State going to be higher than you think. Let's stay positive as a 6 seed. Utah State has been fantastic. They're 15th in the net. They are, what are they on the season? A quick math, 14, 18-1. Is that right? 18-1. That seems like a lot of wins. Something like that. They've only lost one time. They have been the team to beat in the Mountain West all season long, ever since San Diego State's really been struggling. Boise State's been struggling. They just beat Boise State by 1 million the other day. Across the board, pretty much an average of 23 to 24 in resume and computer-based metrics. That's really good. They still don't have a Quad 1 win. They've only had 1 Quad 1 opportunity. It was at South Florida, which they lost. So I see the argument, but they're 4-0 in Quad 2. That's a lot better than the likes of Indiana, who we just talked about. So that strength of record is kind of what equals the 2 out. 24th in strength of record compared to Indiana, like we just talked about, 49. So Utah State been very good. Tennessee up next as the next number 6 seed. I think this might actually be a little higher than Tennessee fans are expecting. However, the predictives do still like them. They're 19th at KenPom, 15th in the BPI, 17th at Torvik. They don't have any losses outside of Quad 1, which I didn't know. I feel like they've lost a couple where it's which I guess at Syracuse is a Quad 1 win. Because they've been playing better as of late. But Tennessee just up next as a 6 seed. St. John's as a 7 seed. They are starting to climb up a little bit better. They picked up some good wins. The predictives still like them. They have 1 Quad 3 loss. But outside of that, who was that Quad 3 loss? Oh, it was that home game to Providence, which is a Quad 3 loss. That's crazy. Providence going to be looking for a new coach here soon. But St. John's still right there. Predictives really like them. Louisville, like we talked about, they're next up as a 7 seed with SMU also in the ACC right behind them. Big win against Virginia Tech, like we just talked about. And then St. Mary's just always seems to be right here as a 7 or 8 seed. But they're right there. UCF, who won that game at Kansas State, like we talked about. I'm going to get through these a little bit quicker. No disrespect to these teams then, so we can talk a little bit more about the bubble, because this is just kind of the mush. No disrespect. Not awesome, fantastic team so far, but not anywhere near the bubble, so they've been serviceable. So not a ton to talk about in terms of will they make it or will they be a top 4 protected seed. Just kind of right here, UCF still comfortably in, doing well in the Big 12 under Johnny Dawkins. We talked about Miami, 15-2 on the season, really good resume-based metrics, good strength of record, good wins against bubble. Seton Hall, also right here, one of the better teams in the Big East. And then St. Louis, I get St. Louis up to an 8 seed right now. They're 22nd in the net. Their predictives are good. Resume is also good. 30th in strength of record, 33rd in wins against bubble. Keep it about there. You're a fringe 8 or 9 seed. Up next is Georgia. I will talk about Georgia because their resume is not as good as you might think. 33rd in the net. They're 34th in strength of record, 40th in wins against bubble, so a little bit worse than St. Louis, which is why you'll see St. Louis ahead of them. St. Louis actually has better predictive averages than Georgia as well. Georgia still without a quad 1 win, and they also have a quad 3 loss. Next up, USC, who picked up a much-needed victory at Minnesota to keep them kind of afloat right now. Really been struggling without Rodney Rice, but would have them in the tournament right now. Iowa, another weird team. They're kind of like Florida, but on a obviously not as good scale. Iowa is 18th at Torvik, 20th at KenPom. However, their predictives are really good. The predictives think they're a good team. They don't have a quad 1 win. They're 0-4 in quad 1. Their strength of record is 43rd, 46th in wins against bubble. Predictives keeping them off of, the bubble-ish bubble right now. Auburn up next at number 9. They're 1-3 inside as a number 9 seed. They're 1-3 inside the SEC right now. But doing enough, in my opinion. They're 3-6 in quad 1. So like I said, that's not really going to kill you. They've played a bunch of quad 1 games. They've played a gauntlet of a schedule. They're 1-5 in quad 1A. So most of those games are quad 1A games. They're 3-7 inside the first 2 quadrants, which isn't awesome, but 40th in strength of record, 39th in wins against bubble with solid predictives. Keep them as a 9 seed. Texas A&M up next as a 10 seed. Like I said, one of the last undefeated teams in the SEC until they just lost that heartbreaker at Tennessee in double overtime. Great job by Bucky McMillan. He's done a fantastic job. They're 41st in strength of record, 45th in wins against bubble, so very bubble-ish, which is why they're a 10 seed, but their predictives are very good, surprisingly good. 42nd at KenPom, 31 in BPI, 38th at Torvik, so Texas A&M inside the tournament right now. Next up would be Wisconsin. Like I said, they are now comfortably in the tournament, which you might not have expected after the start to the season, but they've gotten a lot better. Obviously, the win at Michigan is probably the best win all season long. Maybe Arizona winning at UConn, but UConn was shorthanded in that game. Wisconsin 33rd in strength of record, 31st in wins against bubble. 1-5 inside quad 1, not too awesome, but 0 losses outside of quad 1. So Wisconsin in good shape. NC State up next as a 10 seed, kind of one of those teams that they'll hover back and forth from like really high up to struggling to like 10 seed to next 4 out. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that's kind of what it feels like with this NC State team. Predictives really like them. However, they haven't picked up a quad 1 win yet. However, they're 5-0 in quad 2. Still need that quad 1 win for Will Wade's squad. And then Kentucky as that 10 seed. They might have dropped out had they lost that game to LSU, but they did get it done. They're 44th in strength of record, 43rd in wins against bubble, keeping them afloat. But the predictives, 40th at Torvik, 27th at KenPom, 19th in BPI. So all over the place in that one. Might be a little bit of a wait and see thing with Kentucky. Now, up next, this might be surprising to some. It was surprising to me. I have New Mexico as a final bye. So New Mexico is 42nd in strength of record, 38th in wins against bubble, and 32nd in KPI, which is another strength of record sort of metric. 1-1 in quad 1, 3-1 in quad 2. They do have a quad 3 loss, but across the board, been pretty solid. That strength of record and wins against bubble and KPI is kind of what's keeping them afloat right now. I think they would be a bye team if the tournament started today. All right, let's change graphics and talk about our bubble watch. So we talked about Wisconsin, NC State, Kentucky, and New Mexico as our last 4 buys. Our last 4 in Missouri. So Missouri is, like we said, played a really rough non-conference schedule. However, starting to pick up wins in SEC play. UCLA, I do have back in the tournament after picking up a couple wins. Their predictives are kind of carrying them. However, they better pick up some more wins or they're going to be, it's very close. These last, like Missouri's kind of comfortably in ahead of UCLA, Baylor, and Ohio State. So UCLA right there. Baylor, without that win at Oklahoma State, I don't think they'd have been in, but they're just right there. It's close, 2-4 in quad 1, 2-1 in quad 2. Right around 45-ish in their resume and predictive metrics. So it's really close. I got them just on the inside, and same goes for Ohio State. The predictives like Ohio State. They don't have a quad 1 win. However, their strength of record is 50th. So it's really close. I looked at Ohio State versus Virginia Tech forever. It's one of those where what do you value more? Ohio State's 50th in strength of record. Virginia Tech as the first team out is 54th. Wins against bubble, Virginia Tech is 52nd compared to Ohio State's 55th. So, kind of the same thing there. They're kind of cancel each other out. But when Ohio State has a lot better predictives, I'm going to go with Ohio State in that one, even though, like we said, the quadrants might lean a little bit towards Virginia Tech, but the strength of record and wins against bubble kind of equal that out. And with better predictives, I would go with Ohio State. So Virginia Tech right there. And then Stanford, Ebuka Okori, get him in the NCAA tournament, please. Get this man to Dayton at worst and let Kyle Smith and Ebuka Okori, maybe make a little Cinderella run. This team is super fun. I hope they can sneak in. They have good resume-based metrics, but the predictives are not very good at all for an average of 71.3. So it depends if you see different bracketology numbers, depends what people value. Do you value the strength of record and wins against bubble and really bad predictives, or vice versa, or a little bit of combination of both? It's hard to do. Next up, we talked about Indiana. I have Indiana as the third team out, and then Texas, who I didn't even have as a next four out last time. After the two big wins, I got them in the first four out, so they're back in somewhat shape. However, not enough to get back in the tournament. 69th in KPI, but they're close. They're getting close. Up next, in the next four out, we'll have San Diego State. Out of the Mountain West, they're going to need to probably beat Utah State at least once, maybe twice, or just continue to run the table. Oklahoma State, who's really been struggling as of late under Steve Lutz. George Mason, who is 17-1 on the season. Sneakily, they haven't played a very tough schedule, but they're still right there. And then Creighton still hanging on by a thread. All right, let's go back to the graphics. So if you see Missouri versus UCLA, it's just because it would be Missouri versus Baylor, at least in terms of where I have them, but didn't want to put UCLA versus Ohio State, both Big Ten teams. So Missouri, UCLA, Baylor, Ohio State. Miami of Ohio, still undefeated on the season, like we said, as the 11 seed, as the final 11 seed. Now moving on to the 12 seeds. Out of the MAC, by the way, could be Akron. Akron is still very good, which is John Gross is Travis Steele, the coach of Miami of Ohio's brother. So it could be a fun little rivalry there. Kent State, also fine. Like we said, Miami will go to Kent State next week, maybe to suffer their first loss. Murray State, out of the Missouri Valley, a really fun offensive team. This team would be a popular pick to win over a 5 seed. Murray State versus Clemson, that would be a sneaky one. Give me Murray State in that one. I think this team could be a lot of fun. I got USF as the automatic qualifier out of the American after Memphis lost at FAU. Could be Memphis, could be FAU. Tulsa been struggling in American play, still really good. McNeese out of the Southland, no surprise there. McNeese or Stephen F. Austin, should be McNeese. Yale out of the Ivy, although they're actually, like, if you see Princeton or might be Dartmouth in a bracketology, it's because they're the undefeated teams in the Ivy, but Yale's so much better than them. Yale should be the team. 13 seed Liberty out of the Conference USA should be the team to beat, although, I believe it should be Liberty. They're the best team. High Point out of the Big South, they're by far the best program in that conference, although they did just lose to Winthrop. Winthrop could be a sneaky team, but it's High Point's. Utah Valley out of the WAC, which the WAC is better than you might think, and Utah Valley is better than you might think. They're a sneaky little team. If they can be a 13 seed, that's not a team as a 4 seed I would want to play. Same goes for UC Irvine, really well coached under Russ Turner out of the Big West. Could be Hawaii as well. 14 seeds, we're going to go with Hofstra out of the CAA. The CAA is going to be a lot of fun this year. Hofstra is really good. Charleston has Chris Mack. They're starting to figure some things out, and UNC Wilmington is also really good. Arkansas State out of the Sun Belt. They're my pick right now. There's a couple other teams you could pick, but I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with ETSU out of the SoCon, Eastern Tennessee State. The SoCon is bad this year. It's a tough conference to watch. And then I'm going to go with St. Thomas out of the Summit League over the likes of North Dakota State. Wright State out of the Horizon after they just went to Oakland and drilled them. Very surprising result there. So Wright State now the favorite in the Horizon, with Portland State up next out of the Big Sky. Then we're going to talk about Austin P, who what's his name? Emmanuel something. Just saw he entered the transfer portal. The famous, he's got one arm, plays for Austin P, but he's entering the transfer portal. Then UT Martin, everyone's favorite team out of the OVC. Then we're going to go LIU out of the NEC as the first 16 seed. Colgate out of the Patriot. They're the team to beat. And then we're going to have Vermont in a play-in game. Vermont has kind of been falling off a little bit this season in terms of their analytic ranks, but they're still right there. They're the best team in the America East. St. Peter's, how about that? Could we get St. Peter's back in the tournament? Wouldn't that be fun? Then Bethune-Cookman out of the SWAC taking on Maryland Eastern Shore in a first 4 games. So that is the entire bracketology list. We're going to post this on our Instagram, on our TikTok. Be sure to go check that out. All right, next, Let's just preview the upcoming week. Couple games to know. Starting on Friday, the really only game to know is Baylor at Kansas. Kansas favored by 8 in this one via KenPom. That's at 8 o'clock on Fox. Baylor kind of needs a big victory. Like we said, they're the second to last team in, I believe. That's what I had. And Kansas is, playing some good ball right now. Allen Fieldhouse just obviously an incredibly tough place to play. We're going to have two sheets of games here. Kentucky at number 24, Tennessee. I did not think this would be an unranked versus number 24 ranked team at the start of the season. Kentucky is Kentucky is an underdog, and Tennessee is favored by, I can't read it. They're favored by 6 at 12 o'clock on ESPN. This should be a fun matchup. I think Kentucky might really struggle with this Tennessee, just physicality and their offensive rebounding ability. But we'll see. 12 o'clock, ESPN 2, number 16, Virginia. Like I said, they're the second best team in the ACC right now behind Duke at SMU. Virginia favored by 1 on the road now. And will we have some more Boopy Miller magic? We'll see. 1 o'clock on CBS, UCLA and Ohio State. 2 teams I have as the last 4 in. Ohio State favored by 3 in that one. Give me UCLA +3 in that matchup. If it gets up to 4.5, 5.5, I am going to take UCLA. 1 o'clock on the SEC Network, number 18, Alabama at Oklahoma. Oklahoma desperately needs this to have any chance of an at-large tournament. But Alabama is favored by 4 on the road. 2 o'clock ESPN, the best game of the day. The 2 best teams in the SEC, in my opinion. Number 19, Florida at number 10, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is favored by 3 in that matchup. We'll see about that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not even going to bet this game. I'm just going to try and enjoy it. Iowa at Indiana, 2 o'clock on Fox. Iowa hovering down like 9 seed range. Indiana on the outside looking in. Indiana has a good chance here at Assembly Hall to pick up a victory over this Iowa team. We will see if their physicality can match up. 2 very similar teams, in my opinion. I think this is a really good spot for Indiana. However, Iowa has been struggling as of late, and they have one of the best coaches in the country. 2 o'clock on Peacock, number 2, Iowa State at Cincinnati. Will there be brown bags? I don't know. Via boycotting the coaching reign of Wes Miller. I don't know. Iowa State coming off the loss, favored by 9 in that one. 2:15 on the CW. Miami and number 22 Clemson, 2 sneaky, really good teams in the ACC. Clemson favored by 4 at home. 3:30 on the SEC Network. LSU still winless in SEC play, hosting Missouri. LSU is favored by 5. Will they pick up their first victory? 4 o'clock ESPN 2, ranked on ranked matchup. Number 17 Arkansas at number 21 Georgia. This one by 2. And then 4 o'clock ESPN, number 1 Arizona with a sneaky test at UCF. Arizona favored by 9 on the road. Let's talk about the second slate of games, the later games. Number 4 Michigan at Oregon. Oregon is terrible, like we said. Will Jackson Shellstat play this at 4 o'clock NBC? Michigan favored by 16 on the road. 4 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Number 8 Nebraska carries an undefeated record at Northwestern. Don't play around with this one. Northwestern might be the 3rd worst team, maybe 2nd worst team in the Big Ten, but we know how tough they are to play at home. They have a really good coach in Chris Collins, so we'll see about that one. Be careful, Nebraska. 4 o'clock ACC Network, number 14, North Carolina. Coming off that loss at Stanford, sticking in the state of California to go to California, where North Carolina only favored by 3 on the road in that one. However, I don't think California is very good. I think North Carolina rebounds in this one and gets the job done. 6 o'clock on ESPN, Battle of Texas. Texas Tech. You know I love Texas Tech. But Texas A&M at Texas. Texas is favored by 5. They're hot right now. Texas A&M also been playing really well. This is going to be a really fun matchup on ESPN. 6 o'clock on Peacock. Number 5 Purdue at USC. Purdue favored by 7 on the road in that one. USC, like I said, not been playing well without Rodney Rice. 6 o'clock Big Ten Network. Number 12 Michigan State at Washington. Michigan State favored by 5. On the road in that one. 6 o'clock ACC Network. Number 6 Duke at Stanford. Can Stanford take down Duke and North Carolina in the same week? That would be interesting, but Duke favored by 10 in that one. Ibuka Corey, know the name. Watch this game for the Stanford coach team by Kyle Smith. 8 o'clock on ESPN, ranked on ranked matchup. Really, really fun one. It's Vanderbilt and Florida is my favorite game than this one. Number 11 BYU at number 15 Texas Tech. JT Toppin and Christian Anderson versus Richie Saunders and AJ Devanza. Texas Tech favored by 1 in that one. Then 8 o'clock on Peacock. Battle, in my opinion, for the second best team in the Big East. St. John's at Villanova. UConn, obviously, number 1. I think these are your next 2. Villanova favored by 1 at home. 8 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. New Mexico, like I said, last team that has a bye in my bracket, and San Diego State in the next 4 out. Huge game. San Diego State favored by 4. And then, what do they call this? The Egg Bowl. 8:30 on the SEC Network. Ole Miss, who's playing well at Mississippi State, who has also been playing a little bit better as of late, although they've lost a couple in a row. That was a lot of talking. Hopefully everyone stuck through. Bracketology. We are going to post that on our Instagram, on our TikTok. Like I said, I don't really respond to comments on there, but I do respond to comments on YouTube. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please let me know. Keep it, keep the conversation going. So be sure to hit that like button before heading out of here. If you enjoyed the Bracketology episode, subscribe to the show, whether that's on, definitely on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. But if you don't like looking at my ugly mug and want to just listen, Apple, Spotify, we are on there. The links are also all in the description. And follow us on TikTok at Bracket Science, on TikTok and Instagram at Bracket Science with 2 S's, like I said, where all of these will be posted. We'll be back on Monday to recap this weekend, and we will talk rankings. We might even give a little bit, like this past Monday, we gave top seeds, so a little bit of bracketology talk maybe, but be sure to come back. Thanks to everyone for sticking with us. Enjoy this weekend of ball. Everyone take care.